Hello and welcome to today's Google Hangout. For composer and pianist Roger Davidson, music and spirituality are inextricably intertwined in this lifelong pursuit of humanism and peace. An ordained minister, Davidson's latest Soundbrush Records endeavor, Universal Sacred Music for Chorus, is a stunning and profoundly powerful affirmation of his vision. We're happy to welcome Roger Davidson today to explore these themes along with Soundbrush album producer Pablo Aslan and author James Gavin.
Spirituality has always been an integral part of my creative life as an artist as well as my life in general. And it is at the core of everything I do as a musician, whether I'm deliberately writing sacred music or not. It is a large part of spirituality. A lot of spirituality comes in silence too, and in the silence of meditation, in the silence of the trees, in the silence of the wind and the rocks and the flowers in the garden. But it very much is all about listening, and listening to God and to listening to the inspiration that comes through the soul. And that results, for me, being a musician, in the music that I create, and the music that is deliberately created for the purpose of connecting to the divine carries that extra vibration, which particularly coupled with words that are meant to carry a message becomes all the more powerful and all the more communicative of the essence of the spirit.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned silence because, of course, a large part of music is silence.
It is, very much so. Music comes out of silence, and music is inspired by something beyond the silence itself, which out of which you hear sounds, you hear melodies, you hear harmony, and you hear a relationship between one musician and another, or a relationship between yourself and the universe as a whole. It's a very universal process. It isn't tied to one man-made faith or anything like that. It is truly a universal process. Manifests itself in many different ways, depending on what culture or part of the world you're in, but is essentially one universal process.
By the way, I just want to invite Pablo and James to just jump in at any time you feel that it's appropriate.
I can jump in now.
Please
Go ahead.
Having read recently some of Roger's reflections on his spirituality, it's so similar to his musical philosophy, in that Roger's spirituality is about erasing lines and breaking down walls between different kinds of faith and finding the universal essence of all of those faiths. And the first thing that struck me about Roger's music making is that that's exactly what he seeks to do in his music. Roger sees music as a kind of universal worldly thing in which barriers should not exist. You find the good music in every kind of culture and every kind of style, and Roger just seeks to produce the very best of all these different styles. His music is such a melting pot of different cultures and ethnicities and spiritualities. So that's one of the reasons why we can't easily define Roger, because Roger's reach is much smaller than can be fit into some little shoebox.
I think you meant much bigger, Jim, but maybe that's what
you
meant.
I say?
You said he is much smaller than can be fit into a shoebox.
Oh, so. Good heavens! I meant the opposite.
That's okay.
Wrong.
That's okay. I hate to be correcting a professional writer.
Please, please do correct me, because Roger's. If you look at Roger's recorded catalog, it is. I don't know of another composer. I guess we can think of Andre Previn, Leonard Bernstein, men who had enormously expansive tastes in music that was dictated, I think, simply by what speaks to them and what they perceive as a kind of musical honesty. So Roger will try anything, and he will study any kind of music that speaks to him, and again, I can relate that to Roger's spirituality. The idea of universal faith means that bridges are built between people. It doesn't mean that people are separated. It's all about a big bringing together. So Roger's spirituality and his music are one and the same to me.
Thank you, Jim. Would anybody like an Altoid? By the way, I have. You know, I can. Speaking of building bridges, you know,
I wish I could scream, but I can't.
Anyway, is no different than what I've been before. I was ordained. Only now I have a certificate that says that I am legally accepted in the world to not only perform weddings, funerals, and birth ceremonies, but speak on behalf of important subjects with a spiritual point of view. And my ordination is quite recent, so I'm in the process of building a website along with my wife, Roger Davidson, who was ordained at the same time I was. That website will be out soon. It will be lightcircleministries.org, but the launch of that will be in a few weeks. We'll keep you posted. Anyway, to answer your question, Max, I always felt that I was a minister of sorts because that has been my calling to communicate spirituality through music or through speaking or through ceremonies I've conducted or services I've conducted with a lot of music or with little music. And it's all about communicating the spirit of the divine in whatever way I do in any particular event. Your question about is it mainly through music, that continues. The mission of communicating spirituality through music will always continue. But I have in the past, as I will as a minister, in the future be continuing as a speaker occasionally and sometimes frequently to convey sermons and convey ideas in those sermons and speeches that I feel are of importance to the world, not only based on current events, but on history as well. For example, the nature of spirituality itself, as Jim alluded to, is really universal and has been misconstrued by so many millions of people throughout history as being one of divisiveness, of one club being better than another, and nothing is farther from the truth, because it is my firm belief that God looks at all of us as equal, as beings of equal value, no matter what lifetime we're in, no matter who we are, no matter what sex we have, no matter what our life choices are. It doesn't matter. As long as we're happy, as long as we're listening to our conscience, as long as we're doing good and treating each other as we would treat ourselves. Those are the important things. So yes, you can put that through music, but also put it in your daily life. And I try to do my best in that as well. So I do try to I contribute time, words, encouragement, whatever little money I can contribute to this or that organization, such as Amnesty International or Human Rights Watch or whatever other organizations that I may get involved with in one level or another. Transparency International is the latest organization I have gotten involved with a little more deeply, because they are all about rooting out and exposing corruption in all places. And but then they have asked me to come up with some statements that would help their own internal dialogue about the deeper meaning of how human beings get to a state of corruption and how we can improve that. How do we get off the track and get back on the track? How do we get out of a state of disunity into a state of unity and therefore reduce the level of corruption, graft, and conflict in the world? It looks like Jim has something to say about that.
I actually have a question, Roger. I would like to know more. Personally speaking, you created a language. I know about it. It's called Yawasi.
I did, yes.
I don't know anything about this. Can you talk about it?
I certainly can. I can talk quite a bit about that. It would take all day. But when I was about 29, I was driving along one night, not thinking about anything in particular, and and then these words started to come to me, and in normal days, what normally I would say, all right, this is interesting, and maybe a little funny, strange, but it didn't seem strange at all. It felt quite natural. So I thought, all right, that's a good word, and that has a sound, and I can tell the connection between sound and meaning is very deep. So when I got home that night, I started to write those words down, and in the course of the ensuing 2 years or so, I came up with close to 6,000 words, put together a dictionary and a compendium of, a system of grammar, syntax, word interrelationships, and then started to translate text or write original text in that language, and I ended up writing an entire musical pieces in that language that have been since recorded and sung by choirs. 3 short pieces of which are on Universal Sacred Music, conducted by Harold Rosenbaum, which is the recording that sparked this conversation. And the purpose of that language, I intuited, was to connect with in the deepest way between sound and meaning, between a word and its inner meaning and the spiritual origin of it. I wasn't trying to create a world language. I was just responding to a call. What ended up happening appears to be once I publish it, which I haven't done yet, and I tend to get back to work on it, may end up being possibly a viable world language in the future, but I'm not certain that that's what it's for. But it is meant to convey profound connection between sound and meaning, for sure. And that's the purpose of it.
Okay.
All the different styles that I've gotten involved with did not start out by being a mission to show how united music was, but rather it united the different parts of me internally, I'd say, that by the discovery of all of those styles. And so I experienced an enormous growth by being blessed with being able to play music, being able to play tangos, bossa novas, chorinhos, and jazz, and dance music from the British Isles and Ireland, and Japanese music, and all kinds of things, and Chinese music. Whatever I've gotten involved with has been a blessing. And I've experienced the fundamental unity of music that manifests in different ways that enable me to enrich myself and to communicate that sense of unity to others. But it didn't start out by any means with a mission of bringing a sense of unity to the world in any way. I discovered that along the way, and then as I started writing sacred music in the 1970s, in the late 70s, early 80s, I realized, well, that's my primary mission, and then when that any other music carries a spirit that's related to it, and along the way I discovered that when anyone creates music, whether it's in Brazil or China or Mongolia or anywhere in the world, there is an element of creating music out of sound and rhythm. Primary elements of music are sound and rhythm that are a universal experience. They manifest in different ways, but they are a universal experience. This is why I think music gets across so easily to people of cultures other than the music itself.
May I chime in?
Of course.
Because I've witnessed this in working with Roger over the last, 20 years or so. We originally started working with tango, and it was immediately apparent that you have not just a feeling, but an understanding of the language of tango. And then as I discovered your repertoire, and I've witnessed this when we traveled to Brazil to record your music, you have an understanding of the Brazilian music language to the point where the Brazilian musicians we recorded with felt completely at home with your music. And the same thing happened when we recorded klezmer, and we went to Poland, and you've written, klezmer master Frank London said, Roger has written some of the most freshest tunes in the repertoire that I've heard, and he's around and he hears a lot, and so on. I mean, I feel like this is something that is really, who you are, and I think the same thing happens with spirituality, that you're able to see in every religion what they're talking about, and draw the essential language. And you know, in music, we're all ultimately communicating emotions, and we're communicating the kinetics of rhythm, and we're communicating all the things that really go through our body. And I see how you're able to hone in on that, and through your not just your knowledge but intuition, you're able to really understand what the language is about. And I think the same thing happened with religion, and it's no surprise that you've created this intuitive language, because there is something in the way language works and in the way music works that seems to be very natural for.
I would say it's actually, if you look at the dates that the pieces were written in, it's fairly comprehensive of music written between 1982 and 81 and 82 and 2000 and something, 2002, I believe, over a period, basically a 20-year period. There is no, when it comes to music of the spirit, there is no time. And frankly, when it comes to love songs, either, there is no time. I think that there, but if you ask me about a progression, no, it's all in the present time. It's all a continuation of exposure of the music that has always been there. And I can't really talk about it in terms of progress because the spirit of the music is, if I were to rewrite any pieces that I wrote in that time, they wouldn't be that much different, I think, than they are now. It just depends on the text. It depends on the spirit. Maybe I have more skill now than I used to. I don't know. That's questionable. Perhaps I do. But there is a lot about music, not just sacred music, but any music, I believe, that, as they say, does not go out of style if it is truly connected to life and the spirit. The basic message that I would tell you I'm conveying through that album and through any of my music that relates directly to divine inspiration and into the reverence for the sacred, as a prayer to God, is the basic message is we are all one spiritual family. We are all brothers and sisters, and it's time to lay down our arms and live as the brothers and sisters we always have been. We have always been, and remember that the love of God is always present, and that we always can love God and pray for things that are too big for us to handle on our own, and that happens every day. And that faith is not about being less than anything. It's about expanding your spirit and expanding the inner joy and the inner life that one has to grow with ever increasing amplitude every day in one's understanding of the spirit, one's understanding of life, to grow in love, in compassion, in patience, and in a sense of what constitutes the world that we are in terms of spiritual life. And why are we all here together on one planet? We are all meant to function, live, and grow together. It isn't working very well right now, I know, but the point is that we are supposed to help it work better, to let go of our prejudices and let go of our former resentments and learn to forgive old quarrels and to move on in peace. And we can do that if we are anchored in the spirit of truth, and that means we are anchored in the spirit of universal love, unconditional love. It doesn't mean love that happens sometimes and then resentment happens the rest of the time. It means you love all the time. We can practice this with our children, with our wives, with our husbands, with anybody we want. But how to love unconditionally is something that God does all the time. And we should emulate God's example on earth. That's what I'm trying to convey through music.
I have another question for you, Roger.
Yeah.
I've written a lot in all my essays about you on your obvious love of beautiful melodies. It's one of the through lines of your work, no matter what you're composing. What are the qualities of a beautiful melody that speak to people so universally, in your opinion?
Thank you. I think there are two parts to that question. One has to do with words. When I'm writing melody based on words, when I'm setting a text, to me the honest way to do that is to let the melody come out of the words, to be inspired by the meaning and rhythm of the words. So I try to take the natural rhythm of a poem or any text and leave it alone, and where does the music come from there? And to me, it's 99% listening to where I hear that music going. When it comes to music without words, it's more or less the same thing, but it's the music starts, and what are the choices of notes that you make? It's so that you can sing. If the melody sings, if it has, and not just the melody, but the internal voices, when you have harmony, they have to sing too. The melody and the internal voices and the bass line all have to sing. And the melody, if it's strong, will survive any twisting and turning that anyone might do in improvisation, because it is a strong melody. And what does that mean? It's a good question. It means that the melody itself contains a strong harmony. It contains a progression of notes that carries an arc from the beginning to the end. It carries phrasing. It inspires phrasing. It inspires the ups and downs of breathing. It breathes, and allows anyone singing or playing it to breathe in a natural way. It's very hard to put this in words, Jim, but I think that's basic. I think that's basically all I can think of right now.
You answered my question. Thank you.
You know, it seems to me, Roger, because one of the things that I don't know if we're really touching upon is that you're not only you're a great composer, but you're a great improviser.
Thank
you're
you.
very intuitive, and I've been in many improvisations with you, and your communication is very clear, and in a way, it's very easy to do it because you're playful, but then you're able to hear what other people are doing and react, and so that's part of the sort of the intuitive side in you. So how do you work when you're writing a piece for chorus, which inevitably takes a lot of time and is not done in real time? How do you approach that creative moment?
Well, I hear the music going in my head. I hear it, and it's not really any different than sitting down at the piano and improvising a simple binary tune from beginning to end. But the structure is more complex. The opportunities for overlapping voices, if you're writing a choral piece, are much greater, of course. Because unless you're writing a straight chorale or a hymn, you're going to have overlapping voices, overlapping words, and that gives you greater opportunity for expression of the meaning and the expression of the words. So it doesn't go as quickly. But the first thing I do, Pablo, in constructing a larger piece, if that answers the question better, is first of all I draw a big arc on the paper, and then I draw the sections of the piece. And basically, it's like architecture. You have the structure of the house and the building, and then you have the sections, and then you have, of course, the foundation of what the point of the piece is in the first place, and then you divide it into sections. In the case of a mass, for example, you have a built-in text, so you can, even though I change it sometimes, it's a built-in structure. The piece is based on that. If I'm writing the text, I deliberately, structure it that way. But there's always an architecture. So I'm thinking on 2 tracks. I'm thinking of 3 tracks. The melody, the harmonic progression, and the structure are all moving at the same time. And the meaning of the piece is conveyed through a combination of all 3.
Excellent. And so you never feel like you get lost in the weeds in a way, working on details or getting too technical, because you have this overarching feeling.
Now, if I get any weeds, I pull them out of the ground and throw them out. But no, I never feel like I get lost because I'm focused. I find I'm pretty good at focusing for long hours on. And then I take a break and have a cup of coffee or something, and then move on. But you can't write continuously for 24 hours. But I would like to, because it's frustrating to leave the table and get up. But it's a wonderful experience. And I if I find that where I get lost, if I ever get lost in the weeds, because I let too much time go by between working on the piece and then getting back to it, and then I have to say, okay, I have to replay it. what did I do? And, oh, yeah, okay. It's like getting back in a car if you haven't driven it for a while, and then getting used to it, and then you're back in tune. So, but that's the worst that it ever gets, and it's lots of fun. Yeah. I first have to mention Adam Apeshouse, our engineer, was an extraordinary collaborator, and he and I were always in tune musically and sonically about what to do. I was in the booth with him all the time, and Harold was most cooperative and responded to our requests, and it was very harmonious, a harmonious session, and everybody cooperated and did a great job. Overall, it was a joy for me to record pieces that had not been recorded before, and really get them right. And the choir was amazing. It's the New York Virtuoso Singers with 16 great singers. They sounded like 32, and it was an amazing experience. I have only good things to say about that. So, and the instrumentalists were great. They're all played together, and everybody responded amazingly to the music. I think that the power of any music carries is, it's a job of composers to make music almost performer-proof, so that the spirit comes through, no matter what flaws there may be in the process of recording or performing. And you can fix those flaws in a recording studio very easily, because they're always to be expected, and maybe they're not even flaws. Maybe they improve the music. But the point is that a strong piece will always carry through, and then a composer gets to find out, should I adjust this, tweak this here, and tweak this here, and occasionally maybe, I didn't get a dynamic right here or there, so we adjusted it in the recording studio, but all the notes remained the same from what they originally were, and it was I have nothing but good things to say about the whole experience. It was very, very inspiring. Everybody was a joy to work with.
It's a great team. Having produced other recordings with New York Virtuoso Singers, who they're extraordinary singers. They're really I've seen them do. I've heard them do just almost impossible stuff in terms of their ear and their pitch and their rhythm and their blending. And Harold knows how to lead them so well. And I'm glad you brought up Adam Apeshouse, because he makes it look easy. The recording process is not always easy, and he makes it sound very smooth. And there's a lot of post production that happens after the recording, and that's almost an art that he has. He really makes it flow in a way that is not exactly the way things get done in the recording situation.
Yeah, well, that's often true. The recording process went smoothly, but we did, of course, 1 or 2 takes for certain passages, and like all good recording engineers, Adam sewed them together brilliantly. He did it especially well, so that it was what you hear is a seamless performance. And you're right; it's part of the recording process, and but it was brilliantly done.
Thank you so much, Roger, Pablo, and James, for doing the hangout with us today. We had a great time.
We did too. Thanks, Amanda.
Great. So for those watching, please feel free to watch the entire Google Hangout on our Crossover Media YouTube page, and check out our website, crossovermedia.net, where you can get the latest on our artists and music news, as well as great downloadable interview material on our SoundCloud page. And also don't forget to like us on Facebook, and Roger on Facebook as well, and you can follow us on Twitter at @_crossovermedia. All of this can be found in the upper right-hand corner of our website. So thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mac. Bye, Roger. See you soon.
See you.